Welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. Our theme for 2025 is the future of work. Meaning is the new money. In a world shaped by rapid innovation and constant change, the pursuit of purpose and impact has never been more important. I'm Dr. John Dentico, your host, bringing over 30 years of experience in leadership, strategic thinking, and purpose-driven innovation. Here, we tackle the pressing challenges of our time, from the rise of artificial intelligence to the growing need for meaning in the workplace. Together, we'll uncover how leaders can ethically integrate AI to enhance decision-making and keep humanity at the heart of their organizations. Remember, amidst all the technological advancements, in the end, it's always about the people. This podcast is your resource for actionable tools, thought-provoking discussions, and inspiring stories. It's time to go beyond leadership development and focus on leadership impact, creating workplaces where people thrive, innovation flourishes, and meaning truly becomes the new currency. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now, let's throttle up and dive into today's episode. Hello again and welcome to the special 100th episode of the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. John Dentico. If you had told me 3 years ago when I first began this journey that I'd one day be recording episode 100, I probably would have had my doubts. It's been an incredibly meaningful and enlightening ride. I've been blessed with outstanding guests, each one bringing their own unique insights, stories, and perspectives. I'm deeply grateful for their generosity and the value they've brought to this podcast. I've learned so much from these conversations, and I know many of you have as well. Whether it's challenged your thinking or opened the door to a new leadership idea, I hope these episodes have sparked growth. For this milestone episode, I wanted to do something different. It was actually Michael Millward, my very first podcast guest from the UK and founder of Ambassador, who gave me the idea. He suggested I do a review of some of the amazing people who've appeared on this show. After giving it some thought, I realized I wanted this episode to shine a light on one of the most important themes running through all of our conversations. Hire for values, hire for heart. So today we're revisiting 8 powerful episodes, conversations with people who exemplify that idea in both words and action. So let's dive in. To open this 100th episode celebration, we return to a conversation recorded just as the world was beginning to emerge from the isolation of the COVID-19 pandemic. During that time, our ideas of connection, collaboration, and belonging were all being tested, especially in the workplace. Michael Millward, organizational thinker and founder of Ambassador in the UK, challenges us to rethink how relationships form when no longer in the same room. Drawing from Gareth Morgan's Images of Organization, a truly groundbreaking book that changed how we view organizational life, Michael explores how employees today may have more in common with peers halfway around the world than with someone down the hall. And he reminds us of this. Every organization and every individual now faces a choice to decide what kind of working environment fosters trust, alignment, and belonging for them. Let's hear his perspective. Michael, do you think a sense of belonging can be achieved online?
Yes, I do. It all depends upon the individual employees, the organization, and what it is that they do in some ways. Sometimes people do need to be together. But I'm also remembering there is a book called Images of Organizations by Gareth Morgan. And in that book, he says that we will reach a time when workers have less in common with the person who works in the same place as them, the same bricks and mortar. The person doing a different job in the same bricks and mortar location, they will have less in common with those people than they have with people doing the same job on the other side of the world. And I think we're already seeing that happen. If we look at the high-tech sector in particular, because they're more adept at it, they're using it all the day, is that people who, when they want an answer to a question, when they need to learn something, will go to a forum and find that answer. And that person who provides the answer could be anywhere in the world. It's just somebody that they trust in that forum to provide the answer. They trust that forum. They belong to that forum. They belong to that group of people. There is credibility on being part of that group, and that adds something to how they do their jobs. You can also see online that there are lots of organizations, lots of individuals who have built communities which have then delivered very nice incomes for those people. You only have to look at Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, people who have built communities of like-minded individuals who all have a sense of belonging to that community, who are then sharing information, helping one another, spending money. It is possible to build a community and a sense of belonging online. It just depends whether it's right for the organization, or the processes that they're following, the type of customers that they have. And each individual, each organization, each market is going to be different, but we shouldn't. So it's not a black and white. We shouldn't be saying you can only do it this way or you can only do it that way. It depends upon what is required. And we have to be nowadays much more open-minded, I think, about these things than we ever were in the past.
Michael's insights resonate deeply in a post-pandemic world where working remotely is no longer the exception, it's an option. His message is clear. Belonging isn't about geography. It's about shared trust, purpose, and values. And as organizations adapt, each one must ask the hard question: what kind of working model brings out the best in our people? For some, that's the office. For others, it's remote or hybrid. But either way, it's not a default, it's a decision. And as Michael reminds us, the future of connection will be built by those willing to stay open, stay curious, and most of all, stay human. Next, in our 100th episode journey, we hear from Sean Martin, a voice of strength, humility, and heart. Sean's upbringing in a Bronx housing project shaped him in ways that continue to guide his leadership today. In this powerful moment, he shares the 3 life lessons that helped him rise: belief in oneself, a relentless work ethic, and the deep grounding power of love. So let me ask you this question. You've had a very powerful journey. To say that is truly an understatement. What are the 3 most important lessons you learned on the way to where you are today?
First and foremost, what jumps off the page at me is belief. I just think that without it, there is no possibility for success. There is no possibility of escaping such turbulent upbringing or such shortcomings. So essentially, belief is the end all be all of putting you on that path to whatever it is that you want to do. And growing up in those turbulent times and in that kind of environment, at the time, it's just normal. It doesn't seem like there's anything off. This is life. This is what you know to be day-to-day life. It's not until later that you understand the lessons that are being presented to you. And those can either be followed to go down the wrong path or to go down the right path. So for me, belief was instilled at an early age. My mother read me a children's book called The Little Engine That Could. And in it, there's this undersized engine that needs to get the toys up the hill. And all the bigger industrial trains pass these toys by and don't want to give them the time of day. And here comes this raggedy little blue engine that could, and it gets these toys up the hill. And it does it through sheer willpower. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. And it's slowly chugging its way up the hill. This is something so seemingly pointless in a children's book that was read to me probably no later than 4 or 5 years old. But the lesson there is the only thing that I can say separates me from so many of the same people that I grew up with who didn't have the drive or didn't make it out. It was the belief that I could, the belief that I was meant for more. And along the way, there are other lessons that come. And my mother's work ethic to get up every day and go to a job that she didn't necessarily love, but she did it because she needed to put food on the table. And being the product of a single mother household in a housing project in the Bronx, times weren't beautiful by any stretch of the imagination on the outside looking in from somebody who had more, but they were beautiful to us because the lessons were there. The belief was instilled. The work ethic was instilled. Despite many of my neighbors being generational welfare recipients, people that had their parents were on welfare and therefore they were on welfare and they didn't really strive to do much else. I had the luxury of having a mom who got up every day and had to cover both roles of a mother and a father. And because she was only one income, we really couldn't escape the gravity of poverty. And our neighbors were probably doing just as good on welfare as she was as a single mom, but yet and still, she went to work every day. And I think that was invaluable in my ability to just know that if I want something, I'm going to have to work for it. It's not going to come to me. It's not going to be gifted to me. And there's no check coming on the 1st and the 15th. Like so many of my neighbors and friends were trained and brought up to thrive for, which was a small governmental check. I was taught to get up and work for whatever it is that you wanted. And then lastly, love is the end all be all cure for sadness, depression, adversity. You can put all those environmental strains on a person or in a household, but if there's love, there's safety, there's security, there's a place that you can always come back to that is going to nurture you, make you feel secure, and just allow you to hope for better. Without that love, as I saw so many of my friends grow up without, it's just much harder and a much deeper hole to dig themselves out of. So I was fortunate enough to be instilled with 3 core values at an early age and 3 life lessons which will follow me till this day, which is belief. Without it, there's no chance of success. Work ethic, for without it, those beliefs and dreams will never come into fruition. And then the third is love, because ultimately that is what separates human beings from most other animals on the planet. Our ability to love and care deeply, not only about people, but about issues and ideas. And that is what essentially created this amazing society that we're blessed enough to live in.
Sean's story makes it clear that the seeds of leadership are often planted in hardship, not in privilege. His mother's example, his belief that he was meant for more, and his capacity to love deeply have shaped not only his future, but the future of those he now leads. This is the kind of leadership that doesn't show up on resumes, but it's the kind that changes lives. Our next voice in this 100th episode journey is Ryan Skinner, a man whose story of redemption redefines what it means to lead. From addiction to incarceration to financial leadership, Ryan doesn't shy away from the lowest points. Instead, he shows us what's possible when we stop chasing appearances and start rebuilding from belief and trust in ourselves and others. This clip is not just about numbers. It's about becoming the kind of person others can count on. I had a guest on not too long ago, a great guy who's now founded multi-million-dollar businesses, spent 2 years in jail. He was 2 years in prison. Said it's the best thing ever happened to him
Yeah,
because he had to get right with life. You know what I mean?
I do.
Any reflection? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I will tell you, if I didn't go to jail at the bottom, I wasn't getting right. I wasn't getting sober. One of my closest friends is the chief of probation at the courthouse. They put me in jail. Somebody said to me, "How are you friends with him? He put you in jail." I said, "No, my actions put me in jail. He just did his job finally." And I will tell you, it saved my life. And it gave me time. When I first got there, I have such anxiety and ADHD. I was off the wall, boom, boom. I was forced in captivity to calm it down and be able to slow down. I didn't have a choice. When you're in jail, you have two things. You either find God, spirituality, or death. It could be death by drugs. I don't mean you would die immediately. Worse, you'll suffer like crazy. For me, I realized like what I sacrificed and what I squandered. I didn't think I was going to get it back yet. Like when I coach guys, I tell them, I never thought I'd have this life. I was told when I first got to a program, write down 10 things you'd want. I wanted to be able to share an apartment with guys that was sober and pay my own share of the rent. Someday get a driver's license. And these were like real goals of mine. I built the house. I paid it off. I drive the nice car. It's whatever I want. It's most importantly now, for a long time, it was about that stuff. Most importantly is wherever I am, I'm okay. I'm just okay. Like my goal used to be this and this. And now, you know what? I want people to say, hey, he's a good guy. That's it. He's a good guy. He's a good dad. Like that matters a lot to me. The rest is just details.
Very interesting. I was going to follow that up with a question about trust. And how important do you think trust is in the financial market? I have a tendency to think that many people look at the numbers. They see numbers, they see financials, as you say, and it clouds their perspective on things because they're looking at the numbers. But underneath those numbers, it seems to me, there has to be a sense of trust. I'd like to hear your reflection on that.
I agree wholeheartedly because let's face it, again, like we talked about the byproduct, it's not, people don't come to us, the shoes I'm in, say, hey, Ryan, double my money. They want to know that I'm going to tell them what belongs, why it belongs. I'm going to not take excessive risk. Listen, you can make 18% one year, lose 40% the next year. Do we do the client the favor? Absolutely not. But if we can make 8 and then keep it the next year, that's some value. So tools like that are really important. I think it's all coming down to finding out what a person needs, not one size fits all, and then building it around that. It comes down to the same thing we keep talking about, but trust is important. But you need to understand trust is far more important than numbers. Anybody can deliver numbers on a good year. Those same people lose numbers on a bad year. They say, oh, ride out the storm. Well, what happens when you're 65 and you want some money to take your grandchild to Disney? How do you ride out the storm? Hey, if we lost 40% this year, like every 7 to 9 years we do. But in 6.6 years at 8% return, you'll be okay. You can touch the money. Now I'm 72 years old. Think about that. That's outrageous. But that's how it goes. It goes down. People tell you to ride out the storm. It goes up. Hey, don't touch it. It's making money. It comes down to having somebody who's going to sit there and say, hey, don't worry about it. I tell clients, if you're looking at the returns, you should be hiring us. I'm not a return chaser. My job is to create secure income.
Ryan's story brings to light that leadership isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up with honesty, listening with empathy, and doing what's right, even when it's not easy. In his world, trust means more than returns. It means helping someone feel secure, not just financially, but emotionally. That's the kind of leadership the world needs more of. Our next voice in this 100th episode celebration is Dr. Benah Parker, a breast cancer survivor, a people-first leader, a powerful advocate for collaborative leadership. Benah sees leadership not as a title or command structure, but as a shared responsibility, a movement we create together. In this moment, she reflects on what it truly means to lead others with bold strength and care, and why giving people the space to grow may be the most important gift a leader can offer. Because I look at leadership as a collaborative process. I put a line in the sand between leader development and leadership practice and action. Okay. And the idea being that leadership, this is a John Dentico coined phrase. Here it comes. Leadership is what people do together. It's about creating a sense of a movement where everybody is coming along and everybody shares in the responsibility and in getting things done. I'd love your reflection on that.
I love that approach. I remember in one of my first leadership roles, when the first time I was managing a team of people, when I met with them, I said, okay, as my leader, my job is to be both your foundation and your umbrella. I want to make sure that you have everything you need to do your job well. So my job as a leader is to advocate for you, to represent our team and our goals within the larger organization, to make sure you have access to the resources, the people, the training that you need to be successful, but also to protect you from the politics, the games that might be played. It was a very large organization, so there was a lot of history there. But I was like, my job as a leader isn't to just tell you what to do in your job. Yes, it's to help identify gaps and look for opportunities of improvement, but it's to make sure you have what you need and to give you the space to grow your expertise and to shine in your role and to look for opportunities to get you to your next level as well, while we're still contributing what the organization needs and what the company needs from us and what do our stakeholders and our clients and those need from this particular team as well. So this idea that leadership is what we do together, I am all in on it.
Benah's words challenges us to consider that real leadership isn't about standing above others. It's about standing with them. As a survivor, a guide, and a builder of people, she shows that strength and empathy aren't opposites. They are inseparable. Leadership is what people do together. And with people like Benah, it becomes a force for healing, growth, and shared progress. As we continue this 100th episode celebration, we turn to a voice that speaks passionately about the value that makes all others possible: freedom. Nicky Billou is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, and host of 2 global podcasts. But at his core, he's the proud son of a man who fled tyranny to give his children a future rooted in liberty. In this moment, Nicky reflects on that legacy and reminds us why freedom isn't just a political idea, it's the beating heart of entrepreneurship, leadership, and human dignity, and why businesses, at its best, is not a numbers game. It's a people game. In our work up to this podcast episode, you made the statement that business is not a numbers game, but a people's game. Can you peel that onion back a bit more for me and my listeners?
Absolutely. It actually comes from my father. And to tell you more about that, let me tell you a bit about my backstory. I'm actually originally an immigrant from the Middle East. I'm a Christian from Iran. When I was 11 years old, the Islamic Revolution took place in Iran, and my world was turned upside down. My late father, God rest his soul, he could see the writing on the wall. This wasn't going to be a place to raise a Christian family. So he got together with my mom, they talked, and they planned to get me and my 2 brothers out of Iran. And it took them a few years, but eventually they got us out, and we settled where I now live in Toronto, Canada. Now, as you can imagine, at the time I was a kid, I didn't want to leave my home or my friends. But in retrospect, it was the single greatest thing Mom and Dad could have done for me and my 2 brothers. They took our family's legacy from a legacy of tyranny, and they gave us a legacy of freedom. I believe, John, inside every human breast beats the living heart of freedom. Every man, every woman on this planet wants to march to the tune of their own drummer. They want to chart their own course, and they don't want to be told what to do. And I believe that we who live in the West should never take those freedoms for granted. There's dark forces that want to take them away from us, and we should always stand up. The great Edmund Burke, the great English-Irish philosopher, once said, the only condition necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men and women to stand by and do nothing. So I say to you, when forces come and say things like, oh no, we don't, there's disinformation there, we want to take away your free speech rights. Those guys are tyrants. They're not trying to get rid of disinformation. They're just trying to get you to not be able to say what you want to say. And if you believe in entrepreneurship, in success, you need to be a believer in freedom. Every entrepreneur needs to be a philosopher of freedom. Why? Without freedom, you can't have free expression. That beautiful First Amendment that you have in the United States of America. Without the First Amendment, without free expression, you can't have free enterprise. And without free enterprise, how can you be an entrepreneur? How can you chart your own course? How can you march to the tune of your own drummer? And that's why I've become such a champion for freedom. And my late father, he was a champion for freedom because he knew that's what people needed. That's what gave people the right to create their own world. That's why he came to me and said to me, life's about people, son, not about numbers, people. It's that man standing in front of you. That's somebody's hero. That's somebody with hopes, with dreams, with fears, maybe even disappointments. Maybe even someone just like you in business disappointed them. Your job is to restore their faith in humanity by showing them that there's good people there that care about them, their success, their dreams. And my father always said to me, John, believe in people. Everyone needs someone to believe in them because we all have moments where our faith in ourselves wobbles, goes like this. And we need someone to see us and steady us and say to you, I believe in you. I pour into you. I love on you. Because that little spark of belief could take that shaky, wobbly belief that you have and turn it into a roaring fire of belief. And then you're off into the races. And in my work, in my job, I'm somebody who's accomplished a fair bit. I've written 11 books, 2 New York Times bestsellers. Okay. I've got 2 podcasts, one of them the number 1 in its category in the world. And all those are amazing things. I've helped a lot of people become very successful. But if you ask me, Nicky, what do you do? What are you most proud of? I'm most proud that I'm Napoleon Billou's son and that I believe in people just like my dad.
Nicky's words call us back to something foundational, that without freedom, there is no free enterprise. And without free enterprise, there is no personal agency, no path to lead, and no room to believe in people. Leadership, Nicky says, is not just about performance, it's about protection. Protecting the right to dream, to speak, to build, and to live fully. And maybe most powerfully of all, it's about offering belief when someone else's self-belief has started to fade. Because that's where freedom starts, too. Not in policy, but in people. Now, let's hear from Arias WebsterBerry, a leader who proves that heart isn't just about passion. It's about resilience. Raised in adversity, Arias found strength in 2 sources: a mother who modeled fierce work ethic and a vision of himself as a powerful CEO. But what stands out most in this idea, the more pain you've endured, the more bandwidth you develop to handle disappointment. In this clip, Arias reflects on how that inner capacity, built through challenge, becomes the fuel for real, lasting success. Arias, one thing is for sure. You have what athletes call heart. I have to ask you, having overcome some of the most difficult of upbringings, what got you through it? Can you tell me and my listeners and viewers what were some of the fundamental influences in your life?
A couple. One is my mom. I always try to give credit to her. She did some things that weren't optimal, but one thing that she did absolutely an amazing job at was building my self-confidence and my understanding that working harder than everyone else is completely in your control. In testament to her, she worked 2 full-time jobs regularly in order to make sure that we were able to live a middle-class lifestyle. She's a force. She is a no-nonsense type, and she obviously spread that to me. So she's definitely a big influence in my life. And then the other thing is looking at the various things that happened in my childhood and kind of people around me that were not achieving. I saw that, and I also saw the contrast of some of the business leaders that I looked up to. A lot, the maverick CEOs of the 90s and early 2000s were an inspiration to me. They really were my North Star. I looked to them, and while a lot of kids wanted to be basketball players or rock stars, I wanted to be a powerhouse CEO, right? That was, if I had pictures on a wall, it would have been these CEOs. So I got it at an early age, and that being my goal and my mission, it wasn't really hard for me to keep going. It wasn't really hard for me to face adversity and push through it because my why was bigger than whatever was placed in my.
Arias challenge us to consider that leadership is forged in discomfort, that enduring pain doesn't just toughen you, it expands you. It gives you the emotional bandwidth to keep showing up, even when the odds aren't in your favor. That bandwidth becomes resilience, and over time, that resilience becomes success. Not the kind handed out, but the kind earned. One choice, one challenge, one breakthrough at a time. Some stories of leadership begin in privilege. Naomi Mamiye's began in survival. Orphaned before the age of 12, moved between households, and told she wasn't good enough to succeed. Naomi didn't have early mentors. She had pain. But that pain became fuel. In this moment, Naomi shares how being dismissed, even laughed at, drove her to build a design firm from nothing. Today, she's one of the top interior designers of healthcare spaces, offices, and senior living projects. And it all started with one powerful decision. I'll show you who I am. Great. Listen, Naomi, let's start off. Let's go back to your early childhood influences. I'd like to find out some more about that. Tell me, if you will, some of the influences on you in your early life.
I had none. In my early life, I was absolutely miserable. I was always crying and grimy. And I had first, my mother died when I was 12 years old, a day before my 12th birthday of cancer. And then I went to live then my father got me married. My stepmother didn't want me. Then I went to live with one set of grandparents, and my grandmother got cancer. So then I switched to the other grandparents, and they got cancer. And then I switched back to the other grandparents. It was just real difficult teenage years that I went through. And I got married young at 19 just to have a home of my own. And it was a big mistake, but I did it out of desperation. And I found myself divorced 7 years later. Now, when I was married, I used to have this mom's class in my house once a week, and everyone used to take pictures of my house and ask me why I wouldn't do this professionally. And I said, I have 4 little kids and I can't leave them. I would never send to a babysitter and have someone else wait with kids. I found myself in a position where, divorce and no income and no family to help me. So I remembered how everybody always pushed me to go into design professionally. I didn't have money to open a business of my own, and being in the service industry, you're not required, if you use your talents, you don't need that backup money. I decided I am going to open my own design firm. And my ex-husband started laughing at me and said, nobody's going to pay for your arts and crafts. But that just made me even more angry. And that was my first push to prove him and some of my friends that were like, what, you're not trained in this professionally. So I just wanted to prove them wrong. That's what was my first motivator in showing people what I am capable of doing. So it was not one person. It was the disbelief in me that really propelled me to fight and not give up and make something of myself.
Naomi's journey shows us that sometimes belief doesn't come from others. It comes from defiance, from turning every you can't into fuel for I will. She didn't wait for validation. She became a force, shaping spaces that heal and inspire, just as she reshaped her own future. Naomi Mamiye is proof that the strongest leaders are often those who had to build themselves. One decision, one design, one act of courage at a time. To close this 100th celebration, we turn to a story that embodies the full arc of transformation. Ken Miller is the author of the forthcoming book, Becoming Ken, and his journey is one of profound reinvention. From foster care to Ivy League, from homelessness to business ownership, Ken's life shows us that leadership is not a straight line. It's a story of choices, redemption, and rediscovery. In this moment, he reflects on where he came from and how he became who he is. Ken's story highlights the reality that no setback is final and no origin defines your destiny. From being homeless and a 3-time convicted felon to owning 4 companies and mentoring others, he has not just rebuilt his life, he's redefined it. So I'd like to ask you to tell me about a little bit about you. Where did you grow up? And what were some of the influences in your, let's say, early life?
My early life, probably the number one influence is that I was a foster child. So I did my first 6 years as a foster child. I was put up for adoption at birth. And I was adopted when I was age 6 in New York, lived in the country. And then when I was 12 years old, I moved to Alaska. Alaska was very to my upbringing. I went to Alaska, I went to school there. I was a National Merit Scholar, what you might call precocious. Ended up as a National Merit Scholar going to Dartmouth College, Ivy League, up in New Hampshire. And that was very formative for me. I went there young and matured quite a bit there. I got out, went into the corporate world for a few years, fell on some hard times due to some substance misuse, and ended up doing about 20 years homeless on the streets. So I was homeless on the streets. I am a 3-time convicted felon. I speak about that from the stage. But today I have over 20 years being clean and sober. I'm a business owner. I am a husband. I'm a grandfather, father, all the good things. And I give back to my communities. And then I also, again, run work companies. And I'm just happy to be on this podcast and happy the opportunity to maybe share some of my experience and some of the things that I see coming down the line.
God bless you, Ken. And that's the heart of Becoming Ken. And that's the kind of leadership we celebrate here. Not perfection, but persistence. Not polish, but progress. And the courage to become more than what the world expected. As we wrap up this special 100th episode, I want to thank you, the listener, the supporter, the follower, traveler on this leadership journey. Whether you've been with me since episode 1 or you're just joining us now, this podcast has always been about one thing: exploring leadership that makes an impact, not just in business, but in life. Today's theme, Hire for Values, Hire for Heart, came to life through the stories of 8 remarkable guests. Each one brought truth, vulnerability, and wisdom, not from a textbook, but from lived experience. And what I've learned after 100 episodes is this: leadership is not about perfection. It's about showing up with purpose. It's about creating space for others to grow. It's about trust, courage, resilience, and the willingness to believe even when it's hard. And above all, leadership is a process, not a position. A process that invites others in, that makes room for contribution, and reminds us that the best results are the ones we create together. So wherever you are on your leadership path, I hope this episode reminded you that the greatest influence we have is how we make others feel, seen, heard, and valued. Here's to the next 100 episodes. Let's keep leading with heart. Let's keep leading with meaning. And as always, let's throttle up together. Thank you.